I'm going to present some of my experience as a fossil fuel divestment activist to illuminate our main ideas, methods, and growing success, and I hope it'll be of some use. My concern about climate change started in 1970 with the original Earth Day. And I knew that when I retired 5 years ago that I would become a climate activist. And since then, I have been with the fossil fuel divestment movement at 350 NYC. With my background as an artist teacher, I am still surprised I decided to join the divestment group. But I knew I wanted to do something where a focus on a local target might have a direct impact on the global fossil fuel industry. For 2 years, our actions had minor effects. But in 2017, the Divest New York City Coalition, newly formed by 350 National, unified local groups to demand the city to divest. Our engagement increased, and in September, we had a spectacular march across the Brooklyn Bridge that was well covered in the news. In November, the city's public advocate, Letitia James, organized a hearing for a wide range of activist groups to testify. Then, on a quiet evening in December, we received a message from our leaders that the controller Stringer, city controller Stringer, and Mayor de Blasio were going to commit to fully divest the city. On reading this, I leapt from my sofa in disbelief and amazement. When in a few weeks, our coalition was invited to participate in the city's media announcement to the world, and that night, the Empire State Building was illuminated in green for all to see. By the spring of 2018, $7 trillion in divestment had been committed globally. It is important to look at how divestment makes a difference. Bill Gates says that divestment is ineffective and a waste of activist energy, which he thinks should be focused on advancing renewables. His argument is that energy companies are foundational, and in this context, any asset that is divested will just be bought up by someone else with no impact, either financial or moral, in the transaction. We argue, in return, that the financial perspective fails to recognize how psychological markets are and how influenced we all are by our beliefs. We need only look at the surprising rise of populism and nationalism around the world to be reminded of forces that shape our reason. Divestment is only indirectly about finance. It is primarily a tool to change minds. Our goal is to stigmatize the fossil fuel industry. Investments represent not just the financial value of the company, but our belief in ourselves and our future. New York City announced its intention to divest in January 2018. It will not be fully divested until 2022. But by broadly announcing its divestment, one of Earth's iconic cities with a large pension fund publicly rejected the moral and financial value of a global industry. This message sent a little shock into the massive field of energy finance. We were not certain in 2018 that New York would actually execute full divestment, but we were confident then that the stigma had been applied. Just so you know, New York City is on path to be fully divested by 2022, as planned. To stigmatize is to apply a mark of disgrace, a social judgment from which others are both warned and repelled. As its reasons are recognized, its impact spreads. Is there an industry more deserving of this mark than the fossil fuel industry? An industry that over decades has denied the climate research of its own scientists? An industry whose companies refuse to inform investors on how they will provide energy within the evaporating carbon budget? An industry whose companies refuse to recognize that their value is falsely represented by assets in the ground they will not be able to use. To succeed, the stigma of divestment must spread on its own. And even before the coronavirus crash, Jim Cramer, a very popular investment analyst in the United States with a widely viewed show on CNBC, said, "I'm done with fossil fuels. They're just done. We're starting to see divestment all over the world." Different divestment campaigns require different tactics. We thought that New York State might divest along with the city. But our state finance controller, Tom DiNapoli, was not in agreement with the city's decision. So with some disappointment, city activists joined with the New York State Divestment Coalition to change his mind. The controller has taken a position on fossil fuel investments that under normal circumstances could be seen as more than reasonable. His argument is that large pension funds have considerable power to affect an industry by directly engaging company boards with resolutions. He argues that to divest is to give up control over a company's internal decision process. Our argument against DiNapoli's position is the controller's engagement strategy is not unique, and other investors' efforts over several years to apply it to the one product fossil fuel industry have failed. Corporations have succeeded in drawing out or even refusing to give investors information on company value in the face of climate deadlines. And not surprisingly, the industry has recently embraced shareholder engagement as an effective process to stall any calls for change. They have also received support from the federal government to restrict shareholder resolutions that reach too far. The circumstances now are far from normal. There has been an escalating plunge in value of fossil fuel assets, putting pension fund returns in real jeopardy. Asking for time to negotiate now is a form of climate change denial. This is it, and time is up. Globally, $13 trillion are now committed to fossil fuel divestment, and the transition to ESG investments is gaining momentum. In the past 6 months, wind turbines in Scotland have generated almost twice the power requirements for the entire country. COVID-19 and the recent Russia-Saudi Arabia oil price war has practically collapsed the already weakened fossil fuel industry. Many small fossil fuel companies will go bankrupt, but major oil companies are likely to come back. We still face the danger of a subsidized oil industry positioned ever more centrally within our political and economic systems. The end of fossil fuels must happen now, and divestment is an important force in this change. But on a larger scale, we need to understand that humans have become a disruption in the Earth systems that we are a part of. And we need to make a paradigm shift on all levels to realign our connection to nature. Thank you.